We're very lucky to be joined today by James Heappey, MP for Wales since 2015. Prior to being an MP, James served a distinguished military career in both Iraq and Afghanistan.
So you've now been a local MP for just over a year. Do you feel in your time you've seen a disparity between local MPs and those in the Cabinet in terms of neglecting their duties for their constituencies?
No, I don't think that it's that binary that if you are in the front line of politics, you can't serve your constituents. I do, however, think that you have to really know your way around this place and know your way around your constituency and know your job before realistically you can progress to do that sort of thing. So I think that's why you see only those who are who have been here for some time and have shown that they've really got to grips with everything in this place and back in their constituency do they advance, because it's not a case of doing one or the other, it's a case of taking on both.
So have you found, because you've recently joined Parliament, that you've had to focus quite hard on your constituency?
Yeah, but your first instinct is to serve your constituency. And I don't mean that in some sort of romantic kind of, it's just the reality of, that you're new to Parliament, you're new to being the member of Parliament for wherever it is that you represent. And so automatically your first priority is to get that bit right. Now, in my case, I came through a marginal seat where we had to win it from another party. And so actually the imperative for me to get to grips with constituency business was even greater than it would have been for some of my colleagues who had come through seats that were less competitive, because I've got the challenge of not only representing my constituents to the best of my ability, but also to to make the most of the advantage of being the MP ahead of a general election in 2020.
And we've left the EU now, officially according to the vote. We haven't actually left the EU, but we are due to. Do you think that provides an opportunity for Britain, or do you think it might be something we have to manage rather than go forward with?
You see, I've spent the whole summer doing the whole Brexit means Brexit and we're going to make the best of it. And that is the sort of soundbite du jour. Nobody's yet sure quite what that means. I campaigned to remain. That's not true. I reluctantly and very late in the process revealed to my constituents that I was going to vote to remain. I didn't really campaign one or the other. In fact, I very much felt that my job as the MP was to facilitate debate. So I sort of organised a number of debates within the constituency, and I tried to make sure that in what I said on it, when I corresponded with constituents, that I was as balanced as I could be. So, but there's no escaping that my conclusion was that I would vote to remain, and I thought that was probably what's best for the country. However, the country disagreed. And when you set out to have a referendum, we made a manifesto pledge to have a referendum, and we did it. And you can't then turn around and say, well, we don't like the answer, so we're not going to listen to you. We said we'd have a referendum. We've got an answer. We must now enact that. And so we will. I do think it's an opportunity. I think that already there are some great things that have come out of it. We didn't need to vote to leave the European Union to have a Department for International Trade, for example, but we've got one, and I think that's a really positive step forward in terms of Britain's view beyond the European Union and towards the rest of the world. But there are also some massive banana skins on the road in front of us too, and I think the final thing I would say is, whilst I do think this is an opportunity, I do think we can make the best of it, I do think we have no choice but to enact it. It is the democratically expressed will of the British people. I also think that those who campaigned to leave, who say that they have been vindicated by the way that the markets have recovered over the summer since the vote, that they are being similarly selective in their analysis. My view is that there was an immediate reaction to the vote itself, which was recovered from pretty quickly, because actually nothing has changed yet, really. When we unveil what it is we are seeking to achieve in our relationship with the EU, what compromises we're going to need to make on the single market, for example, and when those negotiations then played out in public with the global markets responding to the to those negotiations. That is when I think we'll start to see the real impact of our decision to leave the EU. But it is what we must do, and I don't for a second think that it is fatal. I think there will be pain, but if we do make the best of it, then actually it could be an opportunity for the UK.
Do you think there needs to be more public involvement with our negotiations to leave the EU and being happy with the exit deal? Like the Liberal Democrats, for example, are saying we should have later votes, or it's basically greater public involvement with whether people are happy to leave with the deal that we've got.
No, but I would also point out that the Lib Dem view, for example, that we have a referendum to ratify the deal, as far as I can tell, what they propose is a referendum that chooses to either ratify the deal or abandon Brexit altogether. Now that doesn't seem, we've had a vote on whether or not to be in or out of the European Union. We could do a rerun of that vote, but traditionally when you redo referenda, you get the same result but more stark. So I don't think that, and I don't think there's any clamour to say to the country, try again, let's have another go. Especially if you look at the polls, quite a lot of the British people have a lot of them have really reconciled themselves to the idea of this and are ambivalent or supportive. So if you take the Lib Dem argument forward, that we should have a referendum on the terms of it, surely that is a referendum on whether to accept that settlement or to continue negotiating. You can't delete you can't pervert the no option from being another go at negotiating through to just abandoning Brexit altogether. And then you end up in a perpetual state of referendum, because the country, I don't think we will get a deal that the entire country is jumping up and down about. The decision to leave in itself was marginal. So I think we've got our instructions. We've just got to get on with it now.
And do you think the Theresa May government is going to be a successful government? I don't mean that as a leading question. I just mean, have you seen a difference between the Cameron government and the May government? And do you think the fact there's rumoured policies like grammar schools coming back, that that's going to take a slightly different direction?
So I do think it'll be a very different government, and I do think it'll be a very good government. I've been very impressed by what I've seen so far. And actually, one of the most impressive things is that we've not seen very much so far. Isn't it refreshing to have a government, for the first time arguably since John Major, where the Prime Minister doesn't feel that they need to be on our TV screens every other day? Actually, there is a cabinet, there is a wider government, and at the top of it, the figurehead is the Prime Minister, but you don't need to be out there all the time. Politics, government, is not just about the communications and the media battle. It's actually about doing stuff. And there's nothing wrong, I don't think, Hinkley Point, big issue locally for us in Somerset. There's nothing wrong with turning around and saying, my job is to make the right decision. So I am going to take this deal off with me on my summer holiday, and I'm going to read it from cover to cover, and I'm going to make sure that we make the right decision for the UK. I just find that quite refreshing, actually. I understand that it's very much who she is. I don't know the Prime Minister personally at all, other than met her a few times professionally. But I understand it's very much who she is, and I think that's quite encouraging in a time when politics has become dominated by spin doctors and people, careerists, people who have been around politics all their lives, and for them the cut and thrust of politics is all that is government. And actually, no, government is about making sound decisions to move the country forwards, and I'm very impressed by what we've seen so far. I hope that what we'll see now that this place has come back is that style of leadership will continue. That if there's an announcement to be made on the environment or energy or whatever else, that it will be made by the Secretary of State, and we'll go back to having a cabinet government with a Prime Minister that is overseeing it and setting a direction, and that would be, I think, a really great way to harness the talent that exists within my party and within this government, but also, I think, a way of just restoring the public's faith with politics and politicians, because they would start to see that it's not just a media war, that there is real intellectual rigour in the decisions that are being taken, that these people are running the country for a reason, that they are bright, and I think that would be a really great change.
Did you find then before that you were being quite heavily managed by spin doctors, whips, other party sort of machines? Or is it more relaxed than we might think?
I don't think I wouldn't say that as a backbencher you're being managed. I mean, it just doesn't matter. You know, I'm not on GMTV every morning. I'm not on the 6 o'clock news. I'm not on Newsnight. So actually, you know, people sort of leave you alone if you're a backbencher. There is, however, but there's no escaping that. If you watch the sort of rolling 24-hour news, and they'll get talking heads on to sort of, you know, by-election results are the best. I remember when I was a candidate watching, it might have been the by-election for Newark, or maybe sort of Clacton, the one Douglas Carswell, maybe, and they sort of, you know, and it's taking a while, and it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and there were probably more people in the studio than there were watching it. But they'd sort of rotate these MPs through to come and sort of be the talking heads. And they would all have their lines take. Each party would have worked out what it was that was going to be the message, how they were going to spin up defeat, and, you know, say, well, actually, look, you know, 13 more people called Dorothy voted for us this time than last time, so we've had a real success with people called Dorothy. And you know, and when you watch that, you're just banging your head against the table, sort of in your sitting room, going, you know, come on, you know, just say, yeah, we've lost by more than we thought we would. Clearly, we need to go away and think about it. And, you know, and wouldn't that be refreshing? Someone just answer the question. But instead, they're all just checking their iPhones and their Blackberries for the lines take. And so I don't think the new government would change that necessarily. It's just there's a reality to that, that misspeaking is a problem. You know, the 24-hour news is an entirely benign thing in so much as they just need people on all the time. And providing you go on and you are pretty vanilla and you just sort of answer the questions and don't say anything too controversial, you will have been forgotten by the end of the next ad break. If you say something, if you misspeak, all of a sudden you've gone from being on at 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody's watching to sort of being in the headlines every hour for the next 24, and you've created a bit of a problem. And, you know, and it's not that you've gone on to say anything, you've not gone there to try and be controversial. It's just that, you know, sometimes people misspeak, and so that's and that's not anything to do with. I suppose it's symbiotic. You know, politics has adjusted to take advantage of the new media landscape, and the media landscape has and media have, and there are sort of opportunities now for the media because of the amount of broadcast space that they have, to have more conversation. But of course that brings with it, you know, Anchorman 2 is the best parody of what 24-hour news does, and I think it's probably pretty accurate.
Well, thank you very much for today, James. It's been a real pleasure.
No, pleasure, absolutely.